Hello, hello, hello! Greetings, salutations! Konnichiwa, and every other form of green across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horace, and welcome back, my dear, marvelous, wonderful scholars, to the. Well, I can't say the study. Welcome back to Camp Quinox, my dear scholars. Hello there, hello there, hello there. Hello there, Darth. Congratulations on the game first. Yulian 20, you are so fast. Yes, Darth is fast. Darth, I have force powers, Yulian. Yes, Darth has force powers. Yulian 20, froggies. Hello there, Yulian 20. Welcome. Yes, the frogs are out tonight again. Hello there, Firefly. Good evening to you as well. Good evening, all my marvelous, wonderful scholars, wherever you are, whenever you are across this vast, marvelous omniverse. How are you all doing, my dear scholars? I hope you're doing well. Alien 20 and fireflies too. Yes, yes, there's the odd firefly too as well. We have a lot of things out here in the woods. Bears, somewhere, I'm sure. I don't want them to come out, but I'm sure there's bears and other animals here, which, we don't need to see around here. How are you all doing? Alien 20, I want to go for a walk, but it is too smoky. Well, I suppose being near the fire would make it quite smoky. I mean, luckily the wind here is blowing the fire away from us, so we're not getting any of the smoke. Oh, you mean where you are? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Julian 20. I'm really sorry. Yeah, I have heard across parts of the multiverse that there is some smoke issues happening. Julian 20, lucky you. Well, lucky me, I guess. Julian 20, it is very nasty out. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Julian 20. Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah, that can't be fun. Oh. Oh, I gotta mention our new scholar who has followed us about 7 days ago. I forgot. Venetrix! Thank you for the follow, Venetrix, and welcome to. Again, I can't call it the study. It's Camp Quinox. Oh, but it's good to have you with us. Yes, it's everything's going on. As for me, well, it's the odd stressful day of that sort of thing. I don't even know how to explain it. Dr. Zadium, hello there, Dr. Zadium. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Hope everything's going well for you. Um, Union 20, I love Camp Quinox. Well, good. I'm glad you love it. I try to make it enjoyable for everyone. Oh, but yes, it's been a kind of a stressful day. Try to get over it. But when excuse me, when you're surrounded a little bit by stress, you really can't help such things as much as you want to avoid it. Oh, but oh hello Darth, it's smoky in NYC also. I love the smell of smoke from fires. Well, I'm glad to hear that you love that smell, Darth. I suppose there's plenty of it where you are right now. But, all you dear scholars, all of you who are dealing with all the smoke, please stay safe. I know it can be very, very unhealthy, and you don't want to get sick. No, because then you have to miss coming here, and I would miss you, and I don't want to miss anyone. Aw, you're all too precious to me, my dear scholars. Ah, horse, are you almost done with that marshmallow? Oh, gee. Julian 20, we had the worst air in the world today. Oh my goodness gracious. That's an accomplishment. That's an accomplishment. Where did you put the rest of the marshmallows, Horace? Oh, they're in the tent. Oh, I'm not going back there. No, I got plenty of things I have to do right here. Did you have the blankets? Firefly, smoky here as well. Oh dear, oh dear. It seems everywhere it's smoky. Oh. I suppose I should talk about tonight, shouldn't I? We should probably get going with the stream. Tonight, my dear, marvelous, wonderful scholars, we are doing another reading stream. Hello there, Private Mac. Welcome. Oh boy, more campfire stories. We are doing campfire stories of a different kind, though. It's going to be semi-educational too. Tonight we are going to be telling stories of the stars, and specifically stories of what is called constellations. I'm sure you all know what a constellation is, my dear scholars. A series of stars which form a pattern that, you know, that many people prepared. Julian 20 got my telescope. Oh, good, good, good. But yes, constellations. Tonight we'll be telling stories about them, and not just constellations from all over the world. Although the stories, I will admit, the sources I'm using are specifically mostly from Western mythology. Unfortunately, I don't have access to a good book on international constellation stories. I know a few from memory, a few, but not a lot, and not enough really to make a big enough stream for it. So I apologize to all my international viewers if I'm not touching upon the stories of the constellations that you know of. I am really sorry. I honestly am sorry. But I will throw a few facts out there that might interest you. But for this stream, I'm actually going to ask you, my dear scholars, to do a little participation here. All right? Because I know all of you have computers, all that. So what I'm going to ask you, my dear scholars, I am going to ask you to pull up a star map. Go online and look for any old star map you can find. Um, yeah, a star map with constellations on it. Yeah, because it'll make a great guide to what I'll be reading. All right. So, my dear scholars, are you ready to hear some stories of the heavens above, or heavens below, or wherever you are? Unit 20, sure. All right, my dear scholars. Sit back, relax, dim the lights, and turn off your flashlights. Look up into the stars, and let's do a little bit of talking. All right. Let's see. Which ones do we want to start off with? Let's start off with one of the most well-known. My dear scholars, let me get to it. This one is mostly known in the northern hemisphere of your planets. Well, I think it can be seen from this. I don't know if it can be seen from the southern hemisphere, but it is in the north. Mostly well known during the winter. You'll want to look at 90 degrees north by 16 degrees south, my dear scholars. All right, if you can see that. And you'll notice what almost looks like a giant dipping cup. I'm sure all of you know what that is. Darth, and get some snackies and drinks to remind me of learning about stars, not planets like Uranus. Darth, I know. So you'll know what that is. That's what is commonly referred to as the Big Dipper. Private Mac. Ah, you found it. The Big Dipper, which is part of a larger constellation known as Ursa Major. Now, Ursa Major, of course, is translates to the Big Bear, or the Greater Bear, or the Giant Bear, whichever one. And it's one of the most recognizable constellations you can find in the night sky. It's big. It's not the biggest. We'll actually get to the biggest, my dear scholars, but it is a big one. Darth, I refer to them as Little D and Big D. What's interesting, of course, is that the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, the small bear, are both linked in mythology, of course. Darth, that's what she said. Don't know. Bad, Darth, bad. So, the story actually is pretty old. I mean, the Western story of it. I'll mention another story soon after this. So the story goes of course, and involves, of course, Zeus. So the story of Ursa Major is this. There was a devotee of Artemis known as Callisto, and Callisto was very close to Artemis. Now, Callisto one day was in the forest, when of course, looking from above was Zeus, the king of the gods. I'm sure you all know about Zeus. So of course Zeus was smitten by Callisto's beauty. But of course Callisto tried to flee from him, and Zeus caught her and, well, let's just say the results of this were seen in about 9 months. She was of course banished from Artemis's side because to be a follower of Artemis you have to be a virgin. Now Callisto gave birth to a son, who became known as Arcas. Unfortunately, Hera, the wife of Zeus and queen of the gods, discovered what had happened. And so Hera captured Callisto and in her fury transformed Callisto into a great big black bear. Darth, Zeus was smitten by a lot of goddesses and humans' beauty. He was a sweet home Alabama kind of guy, yes. Now Callisto had to abandon Arcas, of course, because she was a bear, he was a human. And Arcas grew into a great hunter. Now one day, as a young man, Arcas was hunting through the forest, as you would, when he spotted a great black bear, unlike any he had ever seen before. Now, what had happened was Zeus happened to be watching over when he saw that Arcas was about to attack what was his own mother, as you can guess. So Zeus transformed Arcas as well into a bear and sent both of them into the heavens, where one became Ursa Major and the other Ursa Minor. Now, this is one of the few story constellations I know another version of, if I remember correctly, which also ties in with a real life location, um, and ties in with another star cluster. So this story actually comes from from the Americas, and I think it is the Sioux, although I might be wrong. Not the Sioux, the Dakota. I might be wrong. Please correct me if I am wrong. I'm going off memory here. And so this story concerns a young man and his 7 sisters. Now, the young man and his 7 sisters were playing once in the plains when suddenly, for some unknown reason, the young man was transformed into a horrible bear. Now his sisters saw this and, realizing the bear sought to injure them, fled. They soon came upon a stump. Now the sisters pleaded from above for safety, and the stump grew and grew and grew, higher and higher. And the bear tried to capture the sisters, but all it could do was scrape along the sides of the stump. The stump grew so high that it reached the heavens itself, and the sisters flew up into the sky and became 7 stars. As for the bear, many years later it would perish and also joined the stars above. And so it became the big bear, and the seven sisters became what we call the Pleiades. Julian 20, I've seen that. As for the stump, it is now known in certain terms as Devil's Tower. If you've never seen it, it is quite spectacular. Julian 20, I've seen that. Oh, good. So you know what I'm talking about. That's one of the few other versions of the stories I know. Julian 20, it is creepy. It's creepy, but it's also quite spectacular and quite inspiring. Now then, we'll talk about another recognizable one that is actually not seeable nowadays. It's believed to be one of the oldest of all constellations, at least recognized, and that would be Orion, the hunter. Now, there's actually several stories of Orion, but all of them concern Firefly. Isn't Devil's Tower the one from Close Encounters? Yes, it is. It's in that movie. Firefly, well done. Julian 20, winter constellation. Yes, Orion is a winter constellation. You won't be able to see it in the night sky tonight wherever you are. Although, is it seeable from the south? I wonder. Oh, it might be in the southern quadrant. So Orion is a well-known constellation. It's one of the biggest constellations. It's not, again, it's not the biggest. There's two other bigger ones. But it is one of the biggest constellations up there. And Orion, the story of Orion, it is named after well, some texts call him a hero. It's debatable. Orion was a giant in some stories. In some stories, he's human-sized. He was a son of Poseidon. Kintron, yes, it is Kintron, yes. Hello there, Kintron, welcome. Now, again, there are many stories of Orion. All of them, in some manner, concerns Artemis. According to one story, Orion, who was, of course, a great hunter, became too arrogant over his hunting skills. And so the gods punished him by blinding him. Now Orion wandered around until he came across Festus, who, feeling pity for the poor man, created an artificial humanoid who could guide him when he was blind. Now this humanoid helped Orion find his way until one day he came across a stream. Now, the god of this stream felt pity for Orion, and so healed his eyesight. Now, Orion never stopped being arrogant over his hunting ability. And in fact, one day he called out that he was a greater hunter than even the goddess Artemis. Now, as you might know, one of the few things you don't do is proclaim yourself better than a god. And so Artemis, in her fury, sent a giant scorpion to sting Orion's heel, whereupon he perished, but was sent into the stars as a heavenly body. Now, again, there are other stories. In some versions, actually, Orion and Artemis were close friends. Not lovers, mind you, but close friends. In this story, Apollo, the brother of Artemis, grew jealous of Orion's closeness to his sister. And so one day, while Orion was out hunting, Apollo challenged Artemis to fix her bow and arrow and shoot at a small target far, far away in the distance. Now, Artemis, being prideful of her own abilities, fired the arrow and instantly killed Orion. Feeling guilt-stricken over the death of one of her friends, Artemis sent Orion into the heavens as a starry being. Now, as we know in later traditions, and this has shown up in quite a few texts, until recently it was a common belief that Orion was the only man that Artemis loved, which we now know is a fairly recent invention rather than one that is that is rather than one that is tradition. I'll put it that way. But that's Orion. Orion, of course, you can find in the winter nights during in the northern hemisphere, and I think it's seeable now in the southern hemisphere because there are. Here's the thing, my dear scholars. The constellations are different in both northern and southern hemispheres. If you look at your star charts, you'll notice that there's quite a few constellations that if you live in the northern hemisphere, you've probably never seen or heard of in the south. I'm fumbling over my words. Now, as I mentioned, Orion is a big constellation, but it isn't the biggest. There's actually quite a few large constellations. Two of them are fairly similar. One of the largest, of course, is Draco, the dragon. Now, Draco can be seen in quite a large section, about March, December. It's actually seeable nowadays. 90 degrees north, 4 degrees south, located in northern quadrant number 3. Although the neck loops into northern quadrant number 4, and his tail extends into northern quadrant number 2. I have a text with me to read for this. Darth, before I mention this, I had to look it up. In Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, the lights of Orion are mentioned a lot. They're unrelated to the constellation Orion. Interesting, Darth. Thank you for that little information. Now, the thing with Draco is Draco can be interpreted as almost any dragon. Some texts, some information interpret it as a dragon called Ladon. Now, Ladon was a dragon tasked with protecting the apples of the Hesperides, who were the nymphs of the far west and daughters of Atlas. Now, I'm sure you know the story of Hercules, if anyone doesn't know Hercules. In fact, Hercules himself is a constellation, which also is, I believe, in the northern hemisphere. But the story goes that on one of his tasks, I can't remember which one off the top of my head, Hercules was tasked with taking the apples from the tree of the Hesperides. Now, Hercules had trouble getting past the dragon for some reason. Julian 20, winner of fame and glory. Let me double check this. I've got the story here. Sometimes I need a little bit of help because my memories can be a little bit foggy on certain aspects. Oh, before I forget, Orion is actually paired with several other, where was that thing? With several other constellations. Orion is paired with Canis Major, the big dog, as well as, of course, Scorpio. Darth, I've got the Hercules soundtrack playing in my head now. That's the only reason I know he's a constellation. Now, the thing with Ladon is Hercules was not tasked to kill him, but to get past him. It was his 11th labor. Now, in one version of the story, Hercules actually kills him using one of the poison arrows of the Hydra. However, in another version, Hercules decided on a different tactic. Instead, he went to Atlas, the father of the Hesperides, and asked him for help. Now, Atlas was more than willing, but first asked Hercules to carry the sky for him for a moment. For you see, Atlas was punished for taking the sides of the Titans in battle and was forced to bear the heavens on his shoulders. Not the world, my dear scholars, but the heavens. Now, Hercules agreed to this, and while he did this work, Atlas walked over and removed the apples and returned. Now, the thing was, of course, Atlas was more than happy to be freed of his burden and told Hercules, well, I could happily give the apples over to the person who sent you these labors if you'll just hold on to the sky for a moment. Darth, he had 12 labors. Yes, he did. Now, Hercules, of course, recognized that this was a trick. Atlas had no intention of returning to the sky. However, Hercules was very clever himself. Hercules pulled the old trick that he told Atlas that, yes, I'd be more than happy to do that, but please first I need to adjust the lion robe on my shoulder. It's starting to slip down a little bit. If you'll take the sky for just a second, I'll just adjust myself. So Atlas did so, and Hercules took the apples and walked off. Kintron, thinking about Orion, I guess if you can't hook up with a goddess, at least you can get a constellation prize. That is awful. That is just terrible. It's one of the worst jokes I've ever heard. Alright. But Draco was sent into the heavens as a reminder of that task. Kintron Beetlejuice maybe do it. You cannot go and blame that. Now, the actual largest of the, well, actually, there's a technical term here. Now, one of the largest constellations in the entire night sky, which again you'll be able to see, is found in 32 north to 89 degrees south, November to January in the northern hemisphere. And that is the constellation of Eridanus, which is a river. Now, here's the thing about Eridanus. Kintron, Beetlejuice being the star of Orion's shoulder. I know where it is, Kintron. I know. Here's the thing with Eridanus. Eridanus doesn't really have a story attached to it. In fact, over the years, many writers and scholars have tried to attach a story to this constellation. It's been called everything from the Nile to being any number of European rivers. Sometimes it's being said to be the river in which Phaeton fatally fell into after attempting to ride the chariot of his father, the sun god Helios, which didn't turn out okay. I mean, well, as you could guess, it didn't turn out well at all. Poor Phaeton. Phaeton was the unson of Helios, who is the sun god. By the way, Helios is the sun. Apollo is the sun god. Don't get the two mixed up. But Phaeton knew that his father was the god of the sun, although no one else believed it. His mother had told him. So one day, Phaeton asked a boon of Helios, any boon. And Helios agreed. I mean, a request of the gods should always be honored. Darth, learning about constellations makes me feel over the moon. Ha 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 ha. I love stuff like this. Now, Phaeton wanted to prove himself. So, the boon he asked of Helios was to drive his chariots for one day. Now, Helios knew that the fiery horses that pulled his chariot were only controllable by him. They were very, very difficult steeds. But he had made a promise to his son, Julian 20. Isn't there a car named that? Probably, probably. He had, but now, as you'll hear, it's not a great name for a car. But since he had given his word, he agreed. So Phaeton climbed into the chariot, took the reins, and took off. At first, everything went smoothly, as it would. However, the horses soon realized that the person driving them was not their master and owner, and started to rebel. Now, Phaeton tried and tried, but he was not a god. He was just a mortal. He was a demigod. So, his strength was not great enough to hold on to the reins of the horses. And soon, he found himself unable to control where they were going. The horses came closer and closer towards the ground, their great heat burning the earth itself. Now Zeus saw this, and seeing that this was a threat to humanity, Zeus sent a thunderbolt and struck Phaeton fatally. Phaeton fell from the chariot and plunged into the river below, where he perished. And in some cases, some writings, that river is Eridanus. How do you pronounce it? Eridanus, which is the river in the sky. Kids, this is why you don't let your kids drive your car. Yes, that is why, my dear scholars. Now you might be wondering, what is the largest constellation in the night sky? Because Eridanus is technically one of the biggest. So is Draco. They're both massive constellations. However, there's one constellation that's bigger than them. This constellation is so big that they actually had to take it apart, believe it or not, as a constellation, because it was too big. Now I have to find the actual title of it. So, this constellation, altogether, was originally called Argo Navis, aka the ship the Argo. And if you won't see it on your star maps for a reason, or at least in a clear way. And that is because they actually had to split it up into 3 constellations, because it was so big and so unwieldy. Julian 20, Jason's ship, yep. It was thanks to the IAU, so you know they're causing trouble as usual. Even back in 1930 is when they changed it. So the three constellations that it was separated in was the following: Carina, the keel; Puppis, the stern; and Vela, the sails. Dr. Zadium, Pluto is displeased. Yes, I am displeased too. The IAU is done nothing but make trouble half the time. Now, I'm not going to tell you the story about the Argo. I'm sure you can all know the story about the Argo. It's too long a story to properly summarize. But, Darth, though this is Constellation is a case where size matters, right? Yes. The astronomers at the time in 1930 felt that as a constellation, there were too many stars in it to keep track of. In other words, that for them it was too difficult to just bunch them up into one because, I don't know. Again, it seems like such an odd reason. But it is considered the biggest of all the constellations. Julian 20, lazy. Yes, it is lazy. It is laziness. Darth, lazy effort. Yes, yes. There is one more constellation involved in the Argo, which was actually added in much later and not by the ancients. And that is... I'm trying to find it. Carina, the keel. Oh no, that is the one. My mistake. Where? My mistake. I just mentioned that one. Oh dear. But yeah, the three parts. So, that's some of the stories. Some of them get very odd, though. For instance, Capricorn. Anyone here a Capricorn? Anyone here a Capricorn? Capricorn's such an odd constellation because of what it symbolizes, a sea goat. There's not really a clear story attached to this constellation. From the book I have here. Oh, Julie Jelly, hello there! You're a Capricorn. Yes, the sea goat. The story here that's used in this book states that it is a representation of the god Pan transforming into a fish. According to this story, when Typhon, the great monster, was created and sent after the gods by the earth goddess Gaia, the gods all fled, transforming into different shapes. Now, according to this story, the god Pan first tried to escape as a goat, but finding that it was not fast enough, decided to flee into the sea, transforming himself into a fish, and that Capricorn itself depicts that mid-transformation. Now, the real reason is the constellation is much, much older. If you want a better lowdown on what the story is behind Capricorn, there's a wonderful video by Overly Sarcastic Productions about the zodiac, and they go into much greater detail of what was going on. Darth, I wonder, is this goddess Pan was transparent with her transformation? I'm guessing that's a joke, but I don't get it. A little slow on that. Yeah, Julian 20 Pan was a guy. Yeah, well, gods are fluid. So another myth that is often depicted in quite a few Constellations is the myth of Perseus. Now, I'm sure you know the story of Perseus. Perseus was a son of Zeus, who was born to the woman. What is her name? Danae? Danae, I believe. Um, her grand, her father had been given a prophecy that his grandson would kill him, and so he took his only daughter and hid her in a jail cell in a tower, so no man would lay her hands on him. However, Zeus, who was absolutely in love with this girl, as he always is with everyone, came to Danae as a shower of golden rain. And do not read too much into it, my dear scholars, please. I don't need that here. Kinchan, I once told a bad joke involving Perseus. Oh no, am I going to hear that joke? The exact joke. Oh no. So, soon after Danae gave birth to Perseus. Now the father, the king of Argos, Acrisius, I have the words right here, was so furious that, wanting to get rid of his daughter and the potential danger to his own life, put his daughter in a box with Perseus and threw it into the ocean. Darth has a bucket of steak ready for the wolf who tells a joke. Kentron, demigod born because of a golden shower. No, thank you. No, thank you. Now, the reason he did this was he didn't want his own hands to be bloodied by their death. By throwing them in the ocean, he essentially gave nature the chance to kill them off. However, Zeus intervened and brought the box to an island where Perseus grew older and his mother lived in the company of a kind man. However, the man's brother, the king of the island, Polydictus, soon grew. He had his eyes on Danae as well. Now, Polydictus wanted to send off Perseus because he knew Perseus would be a threat to any chance he had with Danae. So, he tasked Perseus with retrieving the head of the Medusa. Now, this was no small task. Perseus went off, and with the help of the gods, including Athena, who gave him a shield of reflective material, Hermes, who gave him sandals with wings on them, and even Hades, who gave him a helmet of invisibility. Soon after consulting with the Grey Ones, women who had one eye and one tooth among each other. I couldn't remember all of the facts of this. I'm going off memory again. And discovering the location of Medusa, Perseus, Firefly, the Fates, not the Fates Firefly. It was not the Fates. The Grey Ones are not the Fates. These are a separate entity. Later on, tellings combine them with the Fates. I know Hercules combined them with the Fates, but they were not the same ones. I'll give you the spelling in a second. So the spelling for Polydictus is Polydectes. His brother's name was Dictys. So it's Dictys and Polydictus. Now, Perseus found his way 2. Jury jelly. Ecuno Dictus. Yes, I believe the horse is named for Dictus. Jury jelly. Um, Now when Perseus finally made his way to Medusa's cave, Medusa was sleeping with her two sisters. Now Medusa is the only Gorgon who is not immortal. Kintron, they didn't already have enough Dictus, they needed Polydictus. That's terrible. Um, so Perseus, using the shield to reflect the image of Medusa, because Medusa was so hideous that any glance upon her by any living being would turn them to stone. He snuck up on her and cut her head off with a sickle, after which he put it carefully in a bag. Now he fled right away because the action awoke the two sisters, and they tried to chase after him, but he got away. Now along the way back, he happened upon a young woman who was chained to a rock, and this young woman's name was Andromeda. Now Andromeda's mother, Cassiopeia, was incredibly proud of her daughter. So proud, in fact, that she said that her daughter was the most beautiful creature on earth, greater than even the goddesses above. Now, as we mentioned before, you don't compare yourself to the gods in any way, shape, and form. Now, Cassiopeia's husband, King Cyprus, in order to unfortunately please... Now, I'm skipping over it. I skipped over a word. So, in revenge, the gods sent a monster from the sea, Ceto, to attack the town, unless they gave up Andromeda as a sacrifice to the monster, which unfortunately King Cepheus did so. Now, Perseus happened by, and seeing the maiden in trouble, he took out the head of Medusa, and using it, slew the monster. Saving Andromeda, he was given her hand in marriage. However, first he had to save his mother, of course, because while he was gone, Polydictus made his move. So Perseus and Andromeda flew back. He carried Andromeda with him, at least in some stories. Some stories he leaves her behind and goes back. He flew back to the island of, I believe it's Argo. Not the same Argo as the ship, it's a different Argo. No, that's a different Argo. That's his grandfather. I am mixing up things. Flew back to the island of Polydictus. Whereupon, Perseus used the Gorgon's head to turn Polydictus and all his guests to stone, although not before warning his mother to hide her eyes. Now, Dictys, Polydictus's brother, married Danae. He was the man who took Danae and Perseus in. Oh, and as for that little... What's the word? That little prophecy that we mentioned before. Years and years and years later, Perseus agreed to take part in a series of games. Rather like the Olympics. Now, Perseus was chosen to do the discus. And so Perseus prepared himself, and then he threw the disc through the air. Now at the same time, a strong wind blew, sending the disc flying into the audience, where it struck and killed an old man who had been watching. And that old man was Perseus' grandfather, Darth. So he made a Polydictus. Darth. You are on thin ice here. Now, this story provides a lot of constellations in the night sky. The following constellations are included from this story, and that includes Perseus, of course, Andromeda, Cassiopeia, Cepheus, Cetus, as well as Pegasus, who was born from Medusa's neck. Now I'll get this out of the way because it's always the hot button topic when it comes to this story. Was Medusa a victim, or was she a monster? So, warning if this is a trigger for anyone. If you go from a purely academic point of view, the story of Medusa and her origins in the original story, the original story. Oh, thank you for the hydrate, Issa. Medusa was always, and thank you for the posture check. Medusa was always a monster. She was not born human. She was born a monster. Her sisters were monsters. She was a monster. She had no redeeming qualities whatsoever in the original tales. Now, there is a popular story with Medusa saying that she was once a beautiful maiden who was ravaged by Poseidon and punished by Athena to be turned into a monster. This story was wholly invented by Ovid. Not our Ovid, the poet Ovid, for Metamorphoses. Ovid's Metamorphoses was written during a time when Ovid was in quite a bit of trouble with the Roman government. And so, if you read Metamorphoses, which I have, of course, it's a great story. It's a great book. Metamorphoses is essentially a book where all the stories are there to show how awful the gods are and how terrible they are. And so the story of Medusa was reworked by Ovid wholesale to show just how terrible and heartless the gods are to people. Now, what does this mean for the story of Medusa? Firefly, not being a punishment, I think goes with having a Medusa face on safe houses for women. What does this mean? Well, again, if you go from an academic point of view, the story in Metamorphoses and the later retellings of Medusa are not the original base story. They're I won't say they're nonsensical. They're invented. Now, from personal standings for people, there is nothing wrong with liking the later tellings. And if you find some comfort in them or some righteous anger in the stories, in the Ovid Metamorphoses version, good on you. Just know that it is a later retelling. It's like watching a remake that you enjoy better than the original movie. Yes, the original movie was great, but the remake might be just a little better to you. And that's what the later Medusa tellings were. They were essentially remakes of the story. Kinshon, academic point of view tends to be logic and reason. The macademic view is just nut. Why do you do this to me? Why? I'm trying to be educational here. Now then, we've talked a lot about the northern and really old constellations, those ones. Do you think, my dear scholars, we should head down south? What do you think? Dr. Zadium, I'm keeping my eyes on you. You're all joining against me. I just know it. You're all against me. So, the thing with the southern hemisphere is that a lot of the classifications of constellations down there come from much later than the northern hemisphere. Julian 20, we love you once. Ah. And that's simply because a lot of the people who do these classifications didn't reach the southern hemisphere for many years. Now, here's the thing, of course. The people who lived in the southern hemisphere, of course, saw these constellations all the time, knew about them, and had their own stories to tell about them. They knew them long before the classifications we're going to talk about here. And of course, these had different names, many different stories behind them. Again, unfortunately, I don't have access to those stories. But to anyone from the southern hemisphere who watches, I know that what I'm about to tell is much later tellings and are not necessarily the original stories of back then. Darth, we do this because we love you and love making you nuts, especially with these nuts jokes and other nutty puns. I am just dying here. Kinchon, there's campfire roasting is to be expected. I am dying in my seat right now. I am sitting here in front of a fire, perishing. There's flames, red flames around my face. Just flames. Just trying to get to grips. You're in 20, but no bugs. No bugs tonight. Thank goodness. Kinchon sounds like Miss White from Clue. Oh, you got it. Got it. And of course I'm eating a bug. I damn it. Why? Okay, Darth. Okay. Okay. What do you want, Darth? Mealworms or crickets? Hmm? Which ones? Which ones do you want? Mealworms or crickets? Crickets. Okay. Alright. Which flavor do you want? Bacon and cheese, sour cream and onion, or salt and vinegar? Salt and vinegar, sour cream and onion, or bacon and cheese? Which cricket? Is there a reason you punish me? Salt and vinegar. Okay. We will eat a salt and vinegar. Cricket. Oh, Oh, I didn't even open this one. Huh. Okay. So a salt and vinegar cricket. Here we go. You know, joke's on you, Darth. I actually like the salt and vinegar crickets. They actually taste quite good. Mm. Mm. Well, salt and vinegar makes anything good. Okay, so Southern Hemisphere. Now, this is going to be more of a scientific discussion than a mythological story discussion, because there's not a lot of stories that are connected to the Southern Hemisphere. Now, I'm going to read a little bit of history of this. Now, the ones that most of us recognize, that a lot of us recognize, you only probably know Australian ones. Well, they can be seen in Australia, and I do know there are constellations that have stories in Australia. Unfortunately, again, I don't have access to those stories, and it's really hard to find some of those stories. So there are 88 constellations officially recognized by the IAU. Now, 48 of them are ancient constellations listed by Ptolemy. So there are 40 constellations identified after Ptolemy, mostly filling in uncharted portions of the northern and southern hemispheres. Only a few of them have any connection to classical mythology. Most of them do not. There were a lot that were put out but never were never included. Um, there was, unfortunately, I'm going to let some bad news that made me sad when I found out about it. So, for a time in one of the listed constellations was a constellation called Philanus, which was the cat. That constellation is not recognized by the IAU anymore. It was removed. And the sad thing is that it was created and chosen by an astronomer who who created it because he realized that there were no cat constellations in the sky. And I know there's Leo Minor, which is in the south, which is a lion cub. But there are no cat constellations. And he was a great cat lover, so he wanted there to be a cat constellation, so he created one, except the IAU stepped in and removed it from the list and refused to recognize it. You know, 20 same people who took off Pluto? Yes. The IAU took off Pluto and removed Philanus from constellations. Julian 20, they suck. Yes, justice for Philanus! Justice for Philanus! So a lot of these newer ones are um, actually very faint, very hard to read. And you know what, my dear scholars? Would you like me just to read the list of these constellations and talk about them? Because some of them are... Now I am sad? Why is there a question? Some of them are faint and some of them are interesting. For instance, there is Camelopardalis, which translates from Latin which translates as a combination of two words, camelos, camel, and lepardos, leopard. So it means camel leopard. It's a giraffe. And this is actually in the northern hemisphere. This one is between Ursa Minor and Cassiopeia. I'm getting past. I should be focusing on the southern hemisphere. I apologize. Darth, the IAU will forever be on my sugar honey iced tea list for taking Pluto's planets. That's why it's on a lot of people's. It has angered a lot of people. So, the most famous probably of the southern hemisphere constellations is, of course, Crux, the Southern Cross. You've probably heard it being used in a title in many, many media, but the Southern Cross is one of the major, at least most notable constellations in the Southern Hemisphere. No one's actually knows who first introduced those series of stars as its own constellation. For a long time, it was considered part of the constellation Centaurus, the Centaur. Now, let's see. So here is more of the southern hemisphere ones. Now look at your star guide. Darth, sugar honey iced tea is how I say a bad word when kids are around. It's clever. So here's some of the southern hemisphere ones. Apis, the bird of paradise, which of course is a well, Apis means bird in well, no, it doesn't mean bird. It's an odd little thing. He originally called it the person who came up with this, Plancius. Julian 20. Apus is B. Yes. Apus. They spell it A-P-U-S. So, the original title for this constellation's name is Paradisuvogel Apis Indictus. Combination of Dutch, ancient Greek, and Latin, which literally means the paradise bird bee of India. However, it's always been, as you said, Apis means bee in Latin, but this is always been depicted as a bird. Specifically, it depicts a New Guinean bird of paradise in flight, and it's located in the southern quadrant, number 3. A lot of these are animals. For instance, there is chameleon, the chameleon. It is supposed to, originally apparently it represents a chameleon stretching its tongue towards a fly. There is a fly constellation known as Musca, but they remove the tongue very often. In Julian 20, Karma Chameleon, he comes and goes. He comes and goes. Dorado, the golden fish, is another one, which depicts a dolphin fish. It is also one like chameleon. It's connected to another constellation. In this case, Volans, the flying fish, which is just above it. There is a rare human one called Indus, the Indian, which depicts a male figure wearing a loincloth and holding a spear, sometimes multiple spears or arrows, which, again, it doesn't say what sort of figure it's supposed to be, just that it is. Now, this individual, Plancius, a lot of his choices were all objects that relate to the southern hemisphere. Pavo the peacock, which is supposed to represent, interesting enough, a southeastern Asian peacock rather than the blue peacock. So something that the people of the southern hemisphere would recognize rather than later. The phoenix is another one, which is one of the few mythological creatures in here. And that one is located in southern quadrants 1 and 4. Should be visible October to November down there. Don't know what it is. Southern Triangle is another famous one. Triangulum Australiae, down in the southern hemisphere, which could be seen June to July, so it should be visible down there in the south. Pavo, by the way, is visible July to September, so it's also visible down there in southern hemisphere at the moment. There's a toucan, Tucana. And there's Volans. There were a couple of more interesting ones. Hevelius was another figure who added constellations to the list, including the hunting dogs, which were added to. This is going back to the northern hemisphere, which is in Butes. Darth, oh, I learned just now I shouldn't walk down steps while watching streams. Missed a step and sent my iPad flying down a small flight of stairs. I don't know how the iPad. Are you okay, Darth? Oh my goodness, Darth, are you fine? Are you okay? You're not hurt, are you? Oh my goodness, I'm sorry I didn't see that message earlier. Are you gonna be okay? You're not bruised or anything. Oh my goodness gracious, I'm sorry. Darth, are you okay? Darth? Oh, I'm gonna wait till we hear back from Darth. I'd rather not. Darth, I'm fine. I'm fine. I just have to take this one step at a time now. Okay, okay. Oh, good, good, good. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm you scared me there. Don't want you hurting yourself. I mean, I appreciate you watching me, but please be careful. The lizard is also in the northern hemisphere. We talked a lot about these hemispheres. So here's an interesting little fact. So one of the new later constellations was called the Lynx. Lynx. The original name, though, is literally listed as Lynx Civ Tigris. Lynx or else tiger. Basically, he couldn't decide which cat it would be. And then, of course, there's other ones. Leo Minor and Vulpecia the fox, which depicts a fox walking along with a goose in its mouth. Now then, my dear scholars, this is where it gets interesting for the Southern Hemisphere. Look at your Southern Hemisphere. Look at your star charts. De la Queles. Darth, what does the fox say? I don't know what the fox says. I've never asked the fox. Was a individual who was very much of the... He was very bespotted by the scientific discoveries going on. And so rather than choosing animals for many of his constellations or mythological beings, he chose scientific instruments. So some of these include Callium, the chisel, which depicts a pair of sculptor's chisels tied together. Julian 20, oh, I know what you're talking about, like microscope. Yes, yes! Darth, time out, Matsu, haven't heard the song. What does the fox say? I don't remember the rest of the song. It's like ding 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 ding. It's like something like that. I can't remember the rest. Yeah, Callium the chisel, which depicts two chisels crossing each other. Julian 20, I hate that song. Circinius, which is a drawing compass of all things. It depicts a pair of compasses. This drawing tool consists of two legs connected by a hinge, allowing the distance between the legs to be adjusted. Again, it's modern styles of things. Some of these are really odd. Fornax the furnace represents a type of furnace used by chemists for distilling liquids. The original title of this was Le Fourneau Chimique, meaning the chemical furnace. Horologium, the pendulum clock. It was envisioned as representing a pendulum clock with the swing of its pendulum could measure seconds as well as minutes and hours. This was chosen because it was used by Delancey as an instrument by which he tracked stars. Darth, so the compasses were very encompassing. You are getting worse at this, Darth. You are getting worse. This one's really odd. Mensa, the Table Mountain, which is... It commemorates a specific mountain overlooking Cape Town, South Africa, which was the location Delancey made his astronomical observations. And so here's the one you were talking about, Julian 20. Microscopium, the microscope. So a lot of these southern constellations, a lot of these newer constellations, are very faint. They're not very bright star constellations. So they're very difficult to see at best. Okay, shall I go on, my dear scholars, with the list? There is Norma, the set square, which is a square and ruler for surveyors or architects. Pictor, the painter's easel, named after a tool or equipment used in the arts. His original French name for the constellation was La Chavette et la Pelle, literally the easel and palette. He did at least create one individual in this, which was the sculptor. Or no, it isn't. It doesn't depict a person. It depicts a sculptor's workshop complete with a sculptor's bench, tools, and a sculpted bust. Which its original French name was L'Atelier des Sculpteurs, literally the sculptor's workshop. That is interesting. That you would think that it would be a sculpture. No, it is the workshop, not a person. Julian 20, now I really want to go out and look at the stars, except the sky is too hazy. Aww. There's another compass, the Mariner's Compass, Pyx. Again, all of these were done to celebrate new and exciting scientific instruments. There's even a telescope, telescopium. Now, my dear scholars, you know, I mentioned this in the description of one of my things. Shall we mention Matsu's favorite constellation in all these lists just because of what it is. Are you ready to hear Matsu's favorite constellation? It's in the southern hemisphere. Are you ready? And it is Antlia, the air pump. Its original French name is Machine Numérique, literally the numeric device. It depicts an air pump used to pump and separate gases from each other. It is just the weirdest thing to make a constellation out of. And just the moment I heard that, it was like, yes, this has to be remembered more, because it is such a wild thing to have a constellation. Oh, I am gonna. I mean, imagine looking up at the stars and thinking, "Huh, that looks like an air pump." You know, Tony, you should have a necklace made like that. I wonder if I could. Oh my goodness, I would love to wear a necklace like that. Uh, Darth, that's my new favorite constellation. It involves gases. Kinshon, a heavenly gas, a literal de ex machina. Yes! Yes! Now, okay. So now there's one more constellation mentioned into this, which is Coma Berenices, the hair of Berenice. So, it was formally introduced in 1536, but this grouping of stars was always recognized as some sort of flowing hairlock. It's never been quite decided who it was. However, the name as it is interpreting the hair of the Egyptian queen Berenice. Darth, I'm glad this wasn't called the hair. You know, it's at times like this I really wish Sophia was here, because I could use a teacher on the camp to keep some of you scholars in place. So the story is, and I'm reading this from this book, that Bernice II was the co-regent of Egypt and the wife of her cousin Ptolemy III. When Ptolemy went to battle in the Third Syrian War, Bernice made a sacred vow to the gods that she would offer them her hair as a gift of thanks if Ptolemy was to return to safety. He did, and Bernice duly cut her locks, which were then presented to Aphrodite. This event was commemorated in the literature of the day, and it is said that when Bernice's locks disappeared suddenly from Aphrodite's altar, they reappeared as a grouping of stars in the sky. It's located in the tail end of Leo, and close to the Corona Borealis. Now, so, given the season, what sort of stars would you see nowadays? Well, northern summer, southern winter, these are the current stars you would see. In order: Apis, Ara, Corona Borealis, Draco, Hercules, Norma, I can't pronounce this. Ophilicus. Ophilicus. Oh, my goodness gracious. Scorpius. Serpens. Triangulum australe. Aquilia. Corona australis. Draco. Hercules. Lyra. Pavo. Sagittarius. Scutum. Serpenus. And Telescopium. Kintron Norma, Marilyn Monroe got her star. Aww. But yes, look forward to some of those stars, my dear scholars. So, I think, we've looked at the heavens a little bit. I think it might be time for all of us to get some nice rest. And if you can, and if the weather is not too dangerous, my dear scholars. Darth, what season do we get to admire Dictys? Dictys does not have a constellation, Darth. Thank you very much. Julian 20, this was fun. Thank you. You are very welcome. See, Julian 20's being nice. Mostly. But yes. Alright, my dear scholars. So, I have to make a correction on our schedule. You might have noticed when I made my announcement that we were going to do a collab this Friday. And I announced it also on my Blue Sky. Unfortunately, due to some issues, and one collabor wanting to take part but being unavailable, we are moving the collab to next week. So, next week, my dear scholars, this is the plan. Next week, as far as I know, we will be doing on Monday, we'll be continuing our Lego project and building some more of the Tintin moon rockets. And hopefully I won't go crazy again this time. And then next Friday, I'll give the time when I have it settled, we'll be reading some spooky, scary stories as part of a collab with several of my fellow VTubers. Kintron this time. Yes, this time. Last time was a time. Let's put it that way. So then, let's see who we can raid, my dear scholars, to close out this evening and actually get some rest for all of us. Hell, let's raid Jevniz. They're doing writing and reading. They're reading a story. I'm not sure what the story they're reading is. A lesser known book. Kintron, no rest for the wicked, but Darth does sleep from time to time. It looks like a story called The Story Girl by L.M. Montgomery, 1911. And yes, they're not a VTuber, but, they are doing a reading stream, and that might be fun. So, my dear scholars, I say unto you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, till we meet each other again at the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Till then, farewell and bye-bye. Darth!